with Live Oak Nest. Welcome back to my home. I'm so excited to be here with you today, and I'm so excited to share with you some pretty DIY fall crafts. So it has finally started cooling off here in Texas. I'm in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and this last weekend it was 98 degrees, but today it is 58. So we are so excited to welcome the cooler temperatures. I'm ready to finish decorating my home for the fall season. So y'all come on along with me and let's make some pretty things. So I want to get started here using this turkey scene mesh stencil from a maker studio. I love their stencils, and this one is so pretty. So when I saw this, I immediately wanted to put this on a pillow cover. I grabbed these covers off of Amazon. It's just a little set of 2, and I loved the linen texture and also the little fringe around the outside. So the first thing you want to do is put a piece of cardboard or something inside that pillowcase to keep any bleed through from happening. Now I'm going to lay down my stencil, and I'm just eyeballing this, and once you get it centered where you'd like it, just smooth it out really well so that it adheres really well to the fabric. So I decided to mix 2 colors to create kind of just a little bit lighter brown. So I'm using Well I Declare and Well I'll Swan. And once I get the colors mixed together really well, I'm just going to spread this evenly all over this print. This pillowcase was just soaking up the ink, so it actually took me a lot more ink than I thought it would, but you'll see me working in all directions, up and down, left and right. I want to make sure that I'm getting the ink really well down into that mesh in the stencil so that the print, it picks up all the details when I remove the stencil. This is always my favorite part. You can see here I'm just going to take one corner and peel the stencil back. You want to go directly to the sink and just wash your stencil in warm soapy water and lay it sticky side up to dry. But the detail on Amy's stencils with the Maker Studio are so good. I love them so much. So you can see here, this is my little turkey pillowcase. This would also look beautiful on a big platter for Thanksgiving. So the next thing I want to make is a little fabric label to put on a big basket I have that I want to do a beautiful fall arrangement in. So I'm using this stencil here. It's called Woodland Creatures, and I couldn't decide if I wanted to do like the little topiary tree or the little deer. I thought since it was autumn and fall, I would do the deer with the little text label on top of it. So I'm just going to cut out the pieces that I want here, and since I want the deer on the bottom, I'm going to start with that, and I'm going to use a lighter color for my deer. So I'm just using the leftover paint from my turkey pillow. It's going to be those 2 colors mixed together, and I'm going to spread this out evenly to cover the stencil. Once I get the stencil completely covered with my ink, I'm going to go ahead and pull back one edge of the stencil and then go straight to wash off that stencil. And I'm going to hit this with a heat gun. You could use a blow dryer, but I just want to get it really good and dry before I lay my next stencil on top of this one. So now that that's dry, I'm going to go back in with my second stencil and just layer this on top of the deer. For this, I am going to use the really dark brown, which is the Well I'll Swan, and it's the gel art ink. So it's the darkest brown, and it's just going to allow this text to show up really well on this little label. So all the squeegees that I'm using are from a Maker Studio. This one right here that kind of looks like a stylus or a pencil is so great for like little bitty details in little stencils like this. The bigger ones, like because I had to cut the stencil kind of small, I don't have a lot of work room on the outside, and so I'm having to be really careful to make sure I'm not getting ink past my stencil. So this little silicone stylus tool is so nice to have. So I'm just going to take this squeegee and kind of wipe off any excess ink that I can grab up, just to help it pull up nice and clean when I pull that stencil up. So I want to show you the detail you can get on these stencils. They are so crisp and clean. They just make really, really high quality work. So I'm going to hit this with a dryer for a finishing step, and then I'm just going to use a little bit of hot glue on each corner and secure it to my basket. So this here is the finished product. I think it just turned out so pretty. I love all of these florals in this big gathering basket. This is a mix of faux and dried floral stems that I had on hand, and I just think it turned out so pretty. So up next, I wanted to make some custom ribbon to use in my fall decor, and so here I just took a fabric that I had purchased from Hobby Lobby, and then I tore a really long strip of it, and now I'm just going in with a hair straightener and kind of ironing it out. That way I can make sure my stencil lays flat and gets really good connection when I'm applying my ink. So just a little tip, if you need to do a little bit of ironing instead of pulling out your iron, you can just use your hair straightener and run it straight down the ribbon. So once I have that smoothed out, I'm going to choose my stencil. I'm using this stencil, it's called Forest, and I decided to use this beautiful little pear. I'm really into fruit lately, and so I love this pear, and I also am really loving like the block print look, and so I wanted to kind of create something similar, some ribbon that kind of mirrored that with this particular stencil. So I'm going to mix the two same colors again. I'm using the white and the really dark brown and just mixing them to make them a little bit lighter. I didn't want something so dark on this ribbon, so I'm going to mix my color up until I get it how I like it, and then I'm going to place my stencil down and then use my squeegees to really push that gel art ink down into that stencil mesh. A nice thing about these stencils, if you're working with a pattern or a repeating pattern, something where you're having to use the stencil over and over, you can just pull it up and put it back down while it's still wet. You don't have to like go wash it and then come back and do it again. So I found that I could do 2, 3, maybe 4 in a row on this ribbon before I decided I would need to wash it. So I'm going to kind of show you what that looks like here in this process. You can see I'll pull it up, and then when I go to place it back down, I just use the end of that stylus and kind of dab it down so that it adheres to the fabric, and then I'll go back in with my ink and kind of press it down into there. And I didn't have any problems with this. Every single pair came out looking beautiful. So after I did a couple of these in a row, I did wash my stencil and then went back in with my heat gun and just dried them really well so I could just keep working my way down the ribbon. So when I wash my stencil and I need to use it again quickly, I'll just take like a paper towel or a dishcloth and just kind of dab it a little bit on each side, and you won't have any trouble with it adhering to your surface. So when I finished this up, I decided to hang it on the wreath that's on our front door. It's a corn husk wreath and it has a little bit of dried wheat, and I wanted to mix it with this brown gingham. I just thought the two patterns looked so pretty together. So I love how this turned out. It kind of looks a little bit like block print. I love the pear, I love the colors. It just looks so pretty. And I think it's just so nice to walk up to a beautiful decorated porch to welcome you to my home. So up next, I found the cutest little dishes from Hobby Lobby. I think they were a set of 6, but they're like little butter pat dishes. And when I saw them, I thought, oh my goodness, that it will be so cute with that little acorn. My brand is Live Oak Nest, so I love anything acorns, but I just thought these would look so cute. So I like to use them on tablescapes. I also thought they would be cute for like a little ring dish if you want to set it by the sink to hold your rings while you're doing your dishes. But this little acorn stencil is just darling. I'm using the dark brown ceramic ink. It's a no-bake ceramic paint, and it's in the color dark chocolate latte. So I think it's just a beautiful color for fall. It shows up great on my dishes. And look at this little cutie. I love it. I really love the way that vintage transferware looks, and so I wanted to create something kind of similar to that, use that as inspiration. This stencil here I thought was so pretty, and I thought this little round part would look so pretty in the middle of a plate. This stencil is called Field of Pumpkins, and it also has a really beautiful pumpkin patch on the bottom of the stencil that I'm going to have to use for another project because I love it. So I'm going to go in with that same no-bake ceramic paint in the chocolate latte color. I'm just going to spread it on evenly and then peel off my stencil and just watch the magic happen. So I love using vintage plates or plates like this and incorporating them into my vignettes, and I just love how this turned out. So I would use these plates in like a little stack in a vignette. I would use it to hold a candle or add a cloche to the top. I just think it's such a great way to add a little detail and a little interest to a fall vignette. So for this last project, I wanted to show you how I make over some of these faux pumpkins. So I don't use a lot of these colors, a lot of the bright yellow or the really bright orange in my home, and I always like to make over my pumpkins. And so I'm going to show you how I do that. I'm using Amy Howard's One Step paint in the colors Waybridge Classic and Summer Regatta. So I love these two colors. They're just beautiful blue colors. When I'm doing something like this, I like to work with either 2 or 3 colors in varying shades. So like a dark blue, a medium blue, and a light blue. But you can also kind of work with 2 and just add a little bit of dark like black paint or a little bit of white paint to lighten it up. So the first thing I want to do is just get solid coverage on these little guys. So I'm going to coat them with 2 good coats of the darkest blue. I'm going to work with my dark color first, and then I'm going to go back in and mix the 2 colors because I want it just slightly softer. I don't want it too light, but I'm going to mix the 2 colors, and then I'm going to dry brush on a little bit of this lighter blue color just to give a little bit of texture to help the pumpkins not look quite so flat. So one of the things I really love about this paint too, it goes on great, the coverage is excellent, but it also smells really good. It doesn't smell like paint at all, and even after it dries, you still get like a little whiff of this like soft, refreshing scent. It smells so nice. I love having these pumpkins sitting around because I feel like it just adds a nice smell to the home. So the next thing I want to do after I've finished doing my blue and then dragging on a little bit of that lighter color, I took the dark blue and I mixed a tiny bit of black acrylic paint with that because I wanted it just a little bit deeper. And now I'm going to go in with this smaller pointed brush and just drag it down through all those little crevices. And then once that dries, I'm going to go back in with that original dark blue and just kind of drag my brush over all of those lines to soften them up. I want it to look shadowed and not just like I painted stripes on the pumpkin. I feel like the key to this is just layering and working with a variety of colors that are all in the same color family. So like a really dark blue, a lighter blue, a really light blue, and just kind of blending them, giving you several different colors to kind of add texture and dimension to the pumpkin. And one thing I really like to do is use the dry brush method. You'll see like I'm dipping my brush into the paint and then I'm offloading it onto a paper towel, and it just helps soften your brush strokes so they aren't so harsh once you go to paint the pumpkin. You could also use your fingers here to kind of just smudge the paint and soften up those lines a little bit so they don't look quite so much like brush strokes. But the key is definitely just layering. It's kind of just a process, so have fun with it. So the very last thing I love to do, you could paint your stems that you pulled out, paint them gold, stick them back in the pumpkins, but I love, love, love to use real stems. So every year when we pick our pumpkins, I look for the ones that have the cutest stems. And then at the end of the season, I pop them off, leave them out to dry, and then I add them to my craft stash for the next fall season. So these stems came from some pumpkins that we had last year, and they were like the perfect fit for these pumpkins. And I think that just makes the biggest difference in how these look. Are they not the cutest? I love them. I hope y'all have enjoyed all of these different fall crafts and that you've been inspired and it's given you some ideas. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I hope to see you again soon.